He used to take the soldiers with him to the battlefield, and sometimes they would stay long. And one day he's passing by, and news came to him about a woman who was alone, a wife, and she said poetry about how she's going through a hard time without a husband, and how she says, I fear sin upon myself without my husband, and I fear the fire. And he knew what she meant. Brothers asking this question about when living together with the in-laws, what if the parents are elderly and they're sick and they need you to live with them? And yes, of course, that is a very valid thing. And that's a difficult one. See, when that happens, if you know that they are very sick and they do need you, then you need to talk about that with that potential spouse beforehand. You have to. If they got sick later on, and it requires you that you move out of your dwelling and move in with them to look after them in some way, again, you need to talk with your wife about it. You can move in, you can move closer, you cannot oblige her, even when they're sick, to live in their house. That's a sadaqah and a charity from her. But obviously that would cause tension. So in that case, it's a difficult one. You need to try and get through it together and try to minimize. I always say to people, when you have a problem, work through four things. First one, solution. So in this case, solution is to go and live there, and she agrees with you and everybody's happy. That's a solution. 90% of cases, you can't solve them. So you go to the next one, minimize it. Instead of living there, live close to there. Or talk with your siblings and each one shares a night at your parents' house. I know some people who do that. So minimize the problem. Share it with your siblings, each one sleeps there, and your wife would agree with you. She can't say no to you, to go and sleep a night or 2 nights with your parents and share them. Living close to them, going to them in the daytime, and then someone else at night. So this is minimizing the situation. Number 3 is employing the situation. That's the third stage. See how you can delegate. So for example, getting somebody to come in and care for them and pay for them. Pay for your siblings and say, look, I can't do it, but I will pay. I'll give money. I will buy things from outside. I will do other matters. It's employing the situation. And if that even doesn't work, subhanAllah, you make dua and you try your best. So, unfortunately, I have seen marriages that do break apart as a result of this. But really, this is why when you get married, Rasul ﷺ did tell us that it's not only somebody who prays and fasts or is a Muslim is enough. You also got to look at the character and your upbringing. You got to look at the personality, the values that the person has, their family dynamics. Some people are very stubborn, they're harsh, they're dominant, they're controlling. So you got to study these things beforehand, and that's the safest thing, inshallah. Otherwise, subhanallah, it does cause chaos sometimes. Anyway, khair, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala assist everyone. Yes, brother. Brother's asking, is there a maximum of time that a husband can be away from his family, from his wife? In the Quran and Hadith itself, primary sources, I don't know of any direct text that says how long. All the Quran and Hadith say is live with them reasonably and give them their rights and be generous to them and make them feel secure and so on. But Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, in his time when he was the Khalifa, he used to take the soldiers with him to the battlefield, and sometimes they would stay long. And one day he's passing by, and news came to him about a woman who was alone, a wife, and she said poetry about how she's going through a hard time without a husband, and how she says, I fear sin upon myself without my husband, and I fear the fire. And he knew what she meant. So he went and asked his Hafsa, his daughter, radiallahu anha, and says, how long can a woman stand a common woman last and keep going in every way, in her emotions and feelings and security and all that stuff with her husband away? And she said 4 months. And then from that day he made a rule, men should not go to war for more than 4 months. But that's war, and he would return them back. Some scholars went for 4 months, but the truth is, brother, everybody's different. Some women can't even be 2 days without their husband. Some women a week. Some people in the beginning of their marriage, they're more closer together, they can't just stay away. And then as they get along and children come along, it's easier to be apart. So it depends. You as a husband, you need to look and know your family, akhi. You need to know what kind of wife you have, the circumstances, their needs, the place you live in, the social norms that you took her in, the culture, the family. Some people marry sisters who come out of a family where she was pampered all her life. Her father's always there giving her. You got to understand that she's going to be pampered, right? I'm not saying she's a bad person. She could be really good in other ways. Some people marry a woman who's gone through really hard life and her family's always away. Well, if that's your case, so you got to look at the circumstances. She could be ill. She could be pregnant. She could be breastfeeding. She could be any circumstances. So it's case by case, akhi. All right. I hope inshallah that answers.